Let me just double check, make sure we're live. All right. Double check, make sure we're live. Yeah, we are live on my end. All right, all right, all right. GMI TV, man, the one and only Go Make It, Cosmic Convos, episode 4. And I am accompanied by, like I have said multiple times, my favorite YouTuber at the moment, undoubtedly, Mr. Narco Longo.
Thanks for having me, man. Really glad to be here.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I'm glad you definitely glad you joined me, fam. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. We had a nice full moon gathering last night, so
Ooh, the super moon. So
yeah.
what were really the esoteric meaning behind that rare occasion last night? Can you give me a little gravy on that?
Right. So I think the August 1st or early in August, we had a blue moon this month. So a blue moon means 2 full moons in one calendar month. So that earlier one, I think, was the super moon, but this one was also large. So this moon was the Pisces full moon. So it's the full moon of Virgo. So here's a little way that you can see the harmony and the divine order of astrology, how it's not just nonsense, it's not just made up stuff. Whenever we're in a zodiac sign, for example, right now we're in Virgo, the full moon in Virgo will always be Pisces, because Virgo is directly across from Pisces. So the full moon will always be right across from where the sun is that month.
Okay. Oh, so this is every month, not just when the super moon is occurring?
Every month. But with the blue moon, you get 2 full moons in the same month. Not the same zodiac sign, but in the same month. So let's take the next full moon. If we look at the next full moon, which will be in Libra, the full moon will be in Aries.
Facts.
So because it'll be the month of Libra, right? We're moving into Libra after Virgo. The full moon in that sign will be Aries, because Aries is right across from Libra. Now the other side of this is that a new moon is always in the same sign that the sun is in. So the new moon in Virgo will be in Virgo. The new moon in Sagittarius will be in Sagittarius, and so on and so on. So there's an order, there's a rhythm that never fails, never alters, we're not drifting out of sync or anything like that. That's all lies. So
interesting. So basically, the full moon opposes the sun sign, and the new moon correlates with the sun sign.
Right. Yes.
So it's in a constant rhythm.
Absolutely.
So curious. I've heard people say that the moon that we currently see is fake and that it wasn't always there. So how exactly would that coincide with what you just told me?
I think the moon has always been there, like we see it. And the reason that we see it, I get where people see that from, is because it looks damaged, right? It looks damaged. It looks like it's been roughed up. I don't think the moon is fake. I don't think that it's a spaceship. I don't think it's any of that stuff that these people say. We have sun and moon. The moon is no more fake or artificial than women are, because women is the feminine nature. So you have the feminine body in the sky, the moon, and the masculine, the sun. So these cannot be altered. These can't be tampered with. Sun, moon, masculine, feminine. Now, why does the moon look like it's been stepped on a little? And why does it look like it's been, maybe even shot with cannons and stuff like that? Well, it has craters. It has craters. Now, the moon was named Luna by the Romans, Selena by the Greeks. So Selena is where we get selenite. And if you've ever seen selenite, it looks exactly like the moon. It's solid, but it has like a holographic look to it.
Yes.
And you can see through it, but at the same time, it's solid. Well, guess what? The moon shares in many of those qualities. Now, there's a very famous video going around recently that's been up for a little while. It's an older video of a scientist, physicist, I'm not sure. And he's basically saying the moon is plasma. He says, I've done all the studies. The moon is plasma. They are asking him, oh, you're this expert on the moon. You know, what do you think about people going and landing on it? He said, no. It's plasma. It's energy. You can't land there. You can't land on the sun. You know, there are two types of energy. So I don't think that the moon's been replaced. I'll tell you why it looks the way it does. The sun is hot and airy. It's burning constantly. That is a masculine nature. Men are constantly burning. They have ambition. They have drive. They have aggression, right? Women, more stable, more cool, sometimes not in some areas more dormant in terms of they're passive, they're reactive, they are, everyone gets it. The feminine nature, they're receptive. So the moon stays there and receives what the sun gives to it. And it takes it, it cools it off, it moistens it, and then it casts it back down onto the earth. So the sun is burning and hot and alive. Therefore, the moon has to counter that in almost every way to represent the other side. Meaning it's not perfect and burning and so hard to look at. You can look right at it. It's not that perfect. It's a little bit scuffed up. And it looks dense. It looks like a rock. It almost looks like something you could touch. And that's kind of feminine qualities. Feminine rules matter. Material, that's the mother. So it represents material and density and water and emotion. So that's why it looks like that. It's sad, it looks a little bit beat up, but that's not a alien space battle or anything like that.
Yes, I'm going to say, they say that there's an alien race living within the moon. Then they say that they're harnessing our soul. They say that when we're about to ascend into the other dimension after the body passes on, after we die, they say that false light that you see, that is the moon being reflected, and that we're not supposed to go to that light, because that can repeat the life cycle. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of truth to that, for sure. But you can have all that truth without the alien part and without the spaceship part. Now, that's almost right on the money in terms of the sun is the creator of all things. But if the sun was the only thing in the sky, you'd have a scorched earth. You just have cooked nothing, right? So it has to be interfered with. The sunlight has to be dampened. It has to be challenged. It has to be almost destroyed a little bit. It has to be countered. So in order to be countered, like I said with the moon, it has to be dense, moist, cool, unlike the sunlight, which is lightening, uplifting, hot, burning. So the moonlight replaces that. Now, when a soul, which means sunlight, comes into the body, the material body has already been nurtured and created in the help of the moon. So the moon, nothing materializes on this earth except going through the moon. So you're right about this, how the moon acts as a filter to the soul, because the soul is the unobstructed sunlight which is so pure you can't even look at it, right?
Untainted.
That's why it's cloaked in the body, or else we'd all be walking around blinded, couldn't see at each other. So the sun needs to be blocked a little bit in order for matter to exist. Now, likewise, when you're leaving, when you die, so when you're born, the soul comes down into the body. At the moment the mother comes out of, the baby comes out of the mother, that is your first light. This is why your birth chart is so important. Your birth chart represents the moment that your soul inhabited the body.
Mm-hmm.
The first light. Doesn't matter if you're a C-section, regular child. When you come out birth, that's your first light. The soul, meaning sunlight. Sol is sun, solar. The soul inhabits the body. Okay, well, you asked about leaving. Now, that's truth about the white light. Now, you can live a good life. There, 1 second.
Yes, sir. Bro going in.
Yeah, I'm live. Sorry.
All good, bro.
What's up? What's up? So, when the moon assists in the creation of matter, or else you just have light. So we can get back into that, the creation of the soul and the body, and how they mix into the body at birth, and astrology, how it all connects. But when you're leaving, you touch on a good point. There's this concept of the false light, the deceiver. Some people might even say this is Lucifer, the light bringer, where the light looks so good and appealing, you just want to fly up to it, and you might even get deceived. A lot of times they'll say your ancestors, they'll put your ancestors there to trick you, to say, GMI, come to the light, man. It's all going to be great. Come over. So let me talk about that. That is the soul trap, meaning the sun, your solar entity, soul, wants to go straight back to the sun and perhaps have more freedom in the afterlife, more free will. The moon is kind of like this, it's like symbolically, it represents the roof of a greenhouse. Like we're in a greenhouse and all the light comes through, but there's a glass wall. And I'm metaphorically speaking. The moon, when a soul which has no body tries to escape, Rudolf Steiner talks about this a lot, and he can articulate this better than I can. But when the soul tries to escape, there is a lunar influence that attempts to rematerialize that soul and bring it back into matter very quickly without the chance to sort things out in the next life. Because you hear a lot of people talking about, reincarnation is bad. You don't want to reincarnate. You want to escape, escape the body, escape forever. I'm not in that school of thought. I think there's work to be done here. This is the middle point. This is not the bottom that we need to escape from. We're tethered to the body for a reason. So blah, blah, blah. The moon does create its influence is to recondense matter. So it wants to take light and condense it into matter. And when you're trying to leave, whether this is your last time here or whether you want to spend some time figuring things out before you reincarnate immediately, the moon would like to, this is where people get the word soul trap, because soul means sun, but the moon has a opposing influence to the sun, and thereby the soul. So,
but what it sounded like is that opposing energy that is representing is basically like the balance, though.
For sure. And if you've done your work in this lifetime, you don't need to be worried about getting trapped. So it's not just knowing about the false light, but when you wake up in the afterlife, right, there are a series of so-called ordeals, and it's the duty of the initiated man or the illuminated man to kind of go through some of those ordeals or be familiar with them before he's greeted on death's door.
So do you think we actually do have the ability to make a conscious decision once we leave the body in the afterlife?
Yes. Yeah.
Because
if you're spiritually inclined, if you've done your work, your homework, Freemasons often find out who they were in the last life. and often have connections from last life to the next life.
Oh wow.
Because just certain spiritual practices, and I'm not saying all of them, but that's one of the goals of the illuminated path is to make a thread through your lives. And mankind did not always reincarnate at random. That's a recent thing. Now, part of it is amnesia. You ever heard species with amnesia, right? We're a
Yes.
species with amnesia because we've gone through some serious stuff. So
Mhm.
it's easier to forget. Else we'd be so traumatized. We would just be in too much chaos today.
Mhm.
So blah blah blah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so we touched on the moon a lot,
Mhm.
and so from my studies, and we all know that the moon is associated with Monday or Moon Day. So, what about Monday or Moon Day relates to the moon? Like, why would they associate Monday with that? Why wouldn't it be given to Wednesday or Friday?
That's a great question. I love talking about the days of the week. So, and I love this little chart here you made. This is great. So Monday is Moon Day, like you've said. Now,
Mhm.
with the 5-day work week, you kind of in the last couple hundred years, you've seen the personalities of the days have kind of taken. Is there like a helicopter on David? I think there's like a helicopter on top of us. But am I
Sure.
quiet? You don't hear much noise?
No, I didn't hear anything, bro.
Okay, well, then we're good.
Okay.
So with the 5-day work week, the
Mhm.
days of the week have kind of lost their personality
Mhm.
because the energy's been stifled. It's been smothered because there's too much duty on the 5 days. Whereas Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to show you, and Friday, the personality comes through perfectly. But we can just start with Monday. Monday comes from a moon. So does hormones. So does hormones, a menstrual cycle. So what Monday has to do with the moon, though, is the moon rules money. So Monday is the day when we go back to work. We go back to work. This is the start of the work week because you're there to make your money. So Monday, you'll also see people get a little bit more emotional, right? It can be the saddest or most stressful day of the week.
Nice.
And but like I said, the work week has kind of robbed the days of the week of
Glamour.
their yes of their nuance. So the 5 days of the work week don't have as much uniqueness to them. But Tuesday, if is it okay if I go through the
Yeah,
rest
for
through
sure.
the rest of the days? So Monday's money day.
The
You can think
days. I want you to touch on that as well. Days.
sure. Yeah. Well, people get a little bit upset with days of the week. It's nothing to be scared of. English is not this black magic bad language. If it were so bad, all the people who complain about it would stop using it and learn something else. But they won't.
Interesting.
But they won't because it's the best language on the planet. It's phonetic. It's closest to ancient Phoenician. That's why the British spread it around the world, just like the Phoenicians did thousands of years earlier. But there you go. So English is Anglish, and if you know anything about Phoenician, like he's showing here on the screen, it's angular phonetic symbols.
Oh,
So
so English is English because it's written in
yes,
angles. Okay.
yep, it doesn't belong to England. It belongs to the angels, and
Okay.
the angles of light are the angels of light. So these are little angelic symbols, and England came after. England, as England itself, Ing is a god. It's also where we get the word anchor, Ingvi. Um, but blah blah blah. Okay, back to the days of the week.
Hmm.
Tuesday is Mars. So Monday, oh, here's another one with Monday. Monday is the day where the stock market is most likely to go up, meaning everyone's most likely to see an increase in worth, value, whatever stock prices on Monday across the board.
Interesting.
So you got going back to work to make your money. You have the stock market going up. I think it probably opens then too, but
Yeah.
you've got, so that's enough. And like I said, without the work week, you would see a lot more of the personality. So Tuesday, you can look this up, is the most competitive day of the work week, meaning people are more likely to compete with each other for success in the workplace, or for prizes or rewards or recognition. Or it's the day that people are most likely to get into arguments or confrontations because it's Mars. And you'll find that fighting sports will often use Tuesday as a day for their bouts, rather than Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is more for kind of the family-friendly sports. But Tuesday, it comes from Tiu. Tiu is an old English god, and in Germanic, he's known as Tyr. So Tyr is where we get tyrant, tirade, right? Terrible. So this is Tyr, and Tyr became Tiu. Tiu became Tuesday. So if you speak a little Spanish, that's Martes, Mars Day. Then we have Wednesday. Wednesday. Why is it spelled so weird? Because it goes back to Odin. So Odin is Thoth, like Thode, that's Odin, Thoth, Odin, Hermes. Did you hear me? Hermes, right? That's Hermes, the talker, the god of speech and communication. So to hear someone goes back to Hermes. That's also Mercury. So Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, Odin, these are all the same god. This is Wednesday. This is Mercury in the sky. Now, Mercury, Wednesday, like I said, is Odin. But where do we get Odin and Wednesday? Well, Odin became Woden, which became Wotan, which became Wetin, and then we get Wednesday. So it's a little bit of a ladder how we got there, but you can see this is an old German or Old English, Germanic, Norse god, and that's Odin. And this is where you have an ode to this, like a piece of writing in honor of something else. I can hear that.
My bad.
All good. But an ode is like a piece of writing in honor of something. Ode. That's where you get audio from ode.
Okay.
So Wednesday is the middle day, and mid means midway between the two, right? The middle day. In German, Wednesday is known as Mittwoch, which means midweek. So they don't call it by a god. Many languages do that with Wednesday. They don't give it a god. They call it midweek. But by doing that, they're showing exactly which god he's associated with, because Mercury or Thoth is the one with two halves. Mercury rules Gemini. That's the one with two halves. And Mercury rules Virgo, which is the midway sign of the zodiac. It's right in the middle. That's why it's the medical, hermetic. It's ruled by Hermes, hermetical, midway, medium. This means halfway, but it also means Virgo, like health and medicine. And so that comes from Hermes, hermetic. So all this is the same god. Wednesday is in the middle of the week. Mercury is neither male or female. He's in between, right? He's Hermes is in the middle. He's not a god or a man. He's in the middle. So he's the middleman, and that's his status in many different capacities. So that is why he's in the middle of the week. And then you have Thursday. Thursday is Thor's day. So that's Jupiter. Jupiter is Jupiter, or he's King Arthur, Arthur, Thursday. Jupiter rules the third eye. Thursday. That's why Jupiter, the planet, has the red dot. And that's why Indian people wear the red dot on their forehead. Blah, blah, blah. Thursday is Thor. Jupiter. Well, Thursday.
1 second.
Okay. Thursday used to be a Christian holy day. So Thursday used to be more significant to Christians than Sunday. Because Thursday and Thor is and Jupiter are Jesus. Now, we can get into that a little bit. I'm not saying Jesus is made up and he's actually Jupiter, but Jupiter represents Jesus. It's in the name. Jupiter, Zeus. Hey, Zeus. Jesus. So that's Jupiter, the benevolent, peaceful, fortunate, the benefactor of mankind. Jupiter. So that's Thursday, right? And Thursday is a very Christian holy day. So you'll see this with Jupiter, Thor, Jesus, Thursday. And it's also the day Thor rules Jupiter rules Sagittarius. And Jupiter's day is Thursday. Sagittarius rules abundance, fortune, gratitude,
luck,
and luck. It's nothing but good vibes. So guess when the best holiday there is that has no negative behind it?
Oh, Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, which is always on what?
Thursday.
In Sagittarius. It's the first Thursday of Sagittarius.
Oh, yeah, it's the first one. Yeah, because it's right after Scorpio season ends.
Yep. So the first Thursday of Sagittarius is when people celebrate abundance and they're grateful and they show gratitude and everyone in the family flies in.
Because it's Jupiter Day.
Exactly. So that's how Thursday, it rules abundance too. So Friday, this one is where now we're at the weekend. You're going to see the personality come through the days of the week a lot more. And this also kind of ties into your question coming up about how can we honor the gods or, take them into our daily lives. Well, or the planets, sorry, not the gods, the planets, same things, blah, blah, blah. Well, Friday, on the weekend, you're going to see people already do this. They act out the influence unconsciously because they have more free will on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So they think they have more free will, but in actuality, they're just more open to the influence of the planets. So on Friday, everyone takes their loved ones, or sorry, their lover, boyfriend, girlfriend, take them to a restaurant, take them out for a date, a movie.
Yeah.
That's Friday. Friday is the day for romance because this is Freya's day. Friday comes from Frittag, or that's how they say it in German.
Was that Thor's mom or no? Frida, right?
I don't think it was his mom.
His mom had something sound kind of
similar. Fjord, okay. Jord or Fjorgen was Thor's mom.
Okay, I'm tripping.
And okay, well, hang on. Some people, according to some, Thor is Frigga's son. So you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. But in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she is definitely Thor's father. Sorry, Thor's mother. Thor's mother. But in some of the older mythology, she's not always. But yeah, they're in the same class. They're in the same class of gods, the planets.
Okay.
So
because so far we have Odin, Thor's dad on Wednesday, Thor's day on Thursday. So
Mhm.
Friday, it just seems like it kind of makes sense, the sun being
Yes.
in the middle of the parents. It's kind of
Yes.
interesting.
You're right. So his Venus, the goddess, who's the most feminine god there is.
Hmm.
Venus. This is Friday in Spanish. It's Viernes for Venus. Oh, and Thursday is Jueves for Jove or Jesus in Spanish. Jueves. So Friday goes back to Freitag or Frigg or Freya. There's different ways to say her name, but this is the same goddess. She's the goddess of fertility, femininity,
Mm.
the wilderness, that which is comforting and pleasurable, and also like deceptively seductive, things that are temptation. Venus rules. So this is why Lucifer is Venus as well. This is Lucy.
Lewd.
Lewd, right. And
Mm.
also that goes back to Pluto too.
Yeah, I heard you breaking that
Yes.
down earlier.
Yes.
Hmm.
So loose is like luscious,
Hmm.
where girls can be loose, but luscious. Luscious is.
Lucy in the movie, Lucy.
Hmm.
She's played by a woman. Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. So Friday, also Venus rules fried food because it's so comforting and it's so just
Love
it's
food,
like
yeah.
Venus rules like according to some like fat and sweets, like very indulgent foods. So that's where we get the word fry. Something's fried. It's sweet, but it's also savory and fat and salty at the same time.
So
It's
interesting question. So
sure.
so you said that Christ would more so be represented by Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So they in the Bible he was crucified on Friday.
Mhm.
So what's the astrological ties to that?
I'm not exactly sure. I
Mm.
wouldn't know other than Venus. Lucifer's day is Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I really have to say. I'm gonna have to look deeper into that about
Okay,
the days of the week behind the crucifixion.
for sure. The crucifixion. So I think we were on. Were you done with Friday or were we on Saturday?
Yeah, Friday. It's the best day to go out on a date.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. It's you don't take a girl out on Saturday. That's a little bit trashy. You're
Mm.
more likely to run into party loud people and stuff like that. Saturday, Satan's day.
Mm.
It's Saturn's day. It's Santa's day. Santa is Satan. Same guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're the king of winter, the king of the winterland. Hell is winter. So they both wear red and black, right? Um, and Santa is a karmic entity.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps tabs on things.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, you can smack across the face, and he'll forgive you. That's his message: forgive and forget, and nothing but benevolence. Good always trumps bad, no matter what. So be good. Whereas Santa, it says, "Oh, you did bad. Okay, I'm going to write that down, and I'm never
Mm-hmm.
going to forget. And you will
Ooh.
get punished." The story is a little bit softened for children, but he's a karmic. He represents karma. That's the lesson behind Santa: is
That's Saturn.
he will get you back.
Mm.
So this is Saturday, but blah blah blah. Saturn also rules sin and depravity and a loss of morals, a loss of morality, and sacrifice
Mm.
and foolish deeds. But this is where people black out on Saturday, right? They choose to forget. They black out. They harm themselves. They dance late into the night. They spend more time. People are more out at night on Saturday. So it's the day of the night. It's the day of intoxication,
Mm.
extreme intoxication. It's the day of when people choose to commit their sins and kind
Mm.
of walk with the devil a little bit. So That's Satan. That's Saturn. But also, well, then going to Sunday, what do people do is
They get back grounded.
Yeah, and they kind of beg forgiveness.
Hmm.
If you're a Christian, you go to church. If you're not a Christian, you probably go to the beach. Or if you're a Christian, you might go to the beach too. But you will either worship the Son of God or you worship the sun in the sky. And that's Sunday. Or people will go to brunch. They're just more out in the daylight. It's the day for enjoying the daylight, is Sunday. And yeah, the personality comes through a little bit more on the weekend.
Interesting. So okay, so we couldn't escape the mythological ties when discussing the days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to one of my questions that I wanted to ask you the most. Ancient mythology. Did any of these things actually take place in real life? Where are these stories coming from? Because they say that art imitates life and not vice versa. So would it be safe to say that these events did have to happen for us to have knowledge of them?
Right. Now, of course, there's no bow and arrow in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Man first had to see a bow and arrow in physical form,
Mm-hmm.
and then associate it with what the shapes he saw up there, and so on with the other symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there had to be characters, there had to be events and themes, weapons and stuff like this, icons, objects. All these things had to first be known to man before he could attribute them and place them onto the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, and yeah, I'm talking about astrology. You're asking more about mythology.
Mm-hmm.
With mythology, I would say yes. So much of that did happen, and even if it's an allegory and there's a metaphor being expressed and a transcendental truth being told, there's always the inspiration for the event, like Noah's Ark, and the flood. With me, I will always talk about the reality of the flood and Noah's Ark, but inside, I know I hold many truths of what the myth means outside of the physical. It's just, I think that is more for each person to decide for themselves, the transcendental truths behind the physical story. So I think that the flood, for example, rules a forgetting and a flooding of man's unconscious, where we've kind of been filled up to our heads in water, metaphorically speaking, where we're only conscious of what we see with our eyes and hear with our ears. And it wasn't always like that. But the same way that got flooded, right? What also was flooded was all the terrible things that man has left behind us, like human sacrifice. And well, that might still be here, but human sacrifice, giants, whatever terrible things, monsters, people didn't always have it so good with the houses and police going down the street and everyone's safe. Everyone's safe every night. So there's many different things of what the flood represents. The flood also represents but okay, how about this? With the Greek mythology, whenever you see numbers, you can almost always rest assured those are allegorical, that they're meant to be passed down, like 7, 12 gods of Mount Olympus. Thor never had 12. I don't believe Jesus ever had 12 followers. If there was a true physical Jesus, he probably had a lot more than 12 followers. He might have had less than 12 followers. The 12 part is constructed from astrology. Now, the zodiac was not created by man. It clearly says in Genesis, God created the heavens and said, "Let these be for signs and for seasons." meaning the signs are as real as the seasons, right? And that's in the first book.
Genesis.
Yeah, that's the first chapter of Genesis, I believe.
Genesis 1:14.
And let them be for signs and for seasons. So man did not create the zodiac, but he has learned and attached certain items to it. But the 12ness of the sky, the zodiac, which means 2 plus 10. So dia, 2 plus 10, that's 12. Also, there can never be a 13th zodiac sign because zodiac means 12. You show me a musical instrument that you can put 13 notes on. Doesn't exist. You take a color spectrum and show me it in 13 separate colors. You can't, because you have 7 primary colors, 12 chromatic. You have 7 notes in a musical scale, 12 chromatic notes. And likewise, the 12 gods of Mount Olympus represent something higher than 12 men following one other guy. So that part is fixed. That part is not literal. It can't be literal because of how ancient, how universal that number is of 12. I'm not saying a group of 12 people can't exist, but that's such a universal story where we have to step away from the literal and understand it's probably the zodiac. It's always talking about the zodiac, but it probably originated from the zodiac. And even if these different myths happen, different people tell different stories, you're always going to see that 12. You're always going to see that 7. Always. And I would say, in terms of other people, I've read a book called True Messiah, which is Apollonius of Tyana, who is a Roman philosopher, mystic, teacher, yogi type guy. He traveled to the East, learned a lot, came back. He was alive at the same time as Christ.
Oh, wow.
Now, you've got a lot of different potential people. You hear stories of an Emmanuel. You hear stories of a Yahshua. Well, many people may fit a Messiah archetype, but so much of what we know of Jesus comes from the stars. And to me, that part is mythology. Christianity has a mythology too. They can't deny that. But I would say that I usually go with allegory. And that, so yeah, short answer. But
okay, so you said that they can't deny it, but we all know that they most definitely do deny the astrology the astrology correlation within their text. So what are some of the telltale signs to you within the scriptures that help you not deny the astrological correlations?
Right. So just right off the bat that we were describing, the first days of creation have no meaning or separation or clear amount of time. Time was not created until the stars, the heavens, the stars, and the luminaries, the sun and the moon. One light to rule over the day, one light to rule over the night. Well, what does rule mean? If God already created light and light shines, what does the sun, or maybe he says preside. I need to get my Bible in front of me. But so, okay, Genesis 1. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Genesis 1:14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament, or firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. So every day up until now was not a day as we know it. So the moment that we have the creation of the week, the month, a season just means to divide your day, divide your year into 4 ways. Signs means to divide your year into 12 ways with the constellations of the zodiac. So the signs are real, The seasons are real, the days and the years. You can't have those without the planets. It's right there in Genesis. God said, these lights are the days. They are let them be for. They don't show, they don't indicate. Let there be lights in the firmament to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. It's giving light upon the earth, right? And here, God made two greater lights, the greater to rule the day. Now, he just explained how they're giving light. Light is being given already. So ruling is not the same as giving light. Just like when God gives man dominion over the animals, he doesn't give the leopard dominion over the animals. Dominion does not mean to eat or to devour. Dominion means responsibility. This the same way. Let them rule the night. Let one rule the day and one rule the night. That means influence. That means harmony. That means light and color influencing what happens. Rule means influence. It doesn't mean shining light. So there you go. That's one instance, just going off the first book. Later on, I think in Job, you have can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? I think that's in Job.
Yes.
So the Lord says, can you tell, or maybe angel speaking for the Lord. I don't remember. I have to freshen up. It says, can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? Meaning, can you read the zodiac? Or, so there's two ways to interpret that passage. It's either God or whoever's being spoken to is being challenged, saying, can you do what the Lord has done? Can you create something as wonderful as the zodiac? Can you ever understand the zodiac as well as the man who's created it? Or the second interpretation is God is testing this man. Are you a prophet? Are you worthy of my care for you? Are you worthy of my interest in your life? Can you tell the zodiac like my other prophets have? Because Moses was instructed. Okay, well, in that same passage, can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? I think it's the same chapter. He says, can you loose the bands of the belt of Orion and number the Pleiades or call upon the Pleiades? Something. I'm rough on this, but he says, can you loose the...
He says, can thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?
Right. Thank you. So that is clearly God is the one who named the zodiac, not man. So God has created a zodiac. Why? For us to ignore and to stick our nose up at and say that's not real. I don't believe that. That's from the devil. If that's not heresy, I don't know what is. Casting doubts on God's greatest creation, one of his earliest creations, one of his clearly Psalms 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. That is his greatest creation there is. That is what they showeth his handiwork. They're showing how hard he works. They show his influence. They show his engagement in our lives. So, okay. Well, that's just a couple, but I'd also say that if I was Christian and if I was going to church every day, I'm already believing in astrology. Why? When is Easter determined? Exactly. Easter is determined using astrology. They choose, if I'm not mistaken, the first full moon after the spring equinox. So they're waiting for the spring equinox and they're waiting for the full moon. That's astrology, guys. Now they might not be doing each other's birth charts, but that's only a tiny little piece of astrology. And when people say, oh, God warned against astrologers, be careful of astrology, number one, God never says astrology's bad. He does warn against soothsayers, diviners, divination. And sometimes astrologers get lumped in. Do you know who else? Do you know who else God warns against?
Who?
Lawyers,
Hmm.
doctors, tax collectors. Okay. There's a whole list of professions that the Lord has said. Why? Because if someone can use their authority or their influence to extract money from others, right? If it's extortion or bad business, charlatanism, God was anti-charlatanism.
Hmm.
And with divination and tarot cards and all this stuff, admittedly, from an astrologer, you are going to have a ton of charlatans in this industry.
Hmm.
Dare I say, most astrologers make it up as they go
Hmm.
because they learn it from a bad source and they never check twice. They just start cashing out. And yeah,
I think you could say that about any field, that they have their bad apples.
perfectly said. Um, exactly. How many musicians are there?
Tons.
Billions that you've never heard
Hmm.
of. How many
Hmm.
bands are you ever going to listen to in your life? Probably the
Hmm.
same 100, the same
Hmm.
50 over and
Hmm.
over again, same 50 artists for most of
Hmm.
your time. So you could say that with how many professional fighters are there? How,
Hmm.
hundreds of thousands. How many are you ever going to see on TV at a championship level? A handful, a couple dozen. So
Exactly.
yes, you're right. There's a lot of fakers in any field. Doctors. There's more doctors out there harming people today than there are. God warns against many things.
Physicians
Ast-
and a lot. Yeah.
Now, divination, God warns against explicitly because you always need to be guarded against foreign entities.
Hmm.
Luckily, astrology does not deal with foreign entities whatsoever. The gods, if anyone gets triggered by the word gods, whenever I say gods with the planets, that's a lowercase g. That's a
Hmm.
lowercase g. And if you pay attention to what God says, that is his face. God does
Hmm.
not, those are his faces. God does not have fingers and hands where he can reach down and touch what's down here and move the pieces of the puzzle like he wants to. He doesn't
Hmm.
have fingers. What he has is his lights. And those lights, they shine, they twinkle, they sing, they cast their color
And they're
and
conscious.
Mhm.
They're
and
conscious.
and those are almost like a 3D printer that
Hmm.
influence what's down here. And Mother Earth is what's underneath, taking all that influence, interpreting it, and pumping out the corresponding material, vegetation, dirt, plant life, insect life. All of that is being received and caused by the light up there.
Hmm.
That's the causal realm. Down here is the effectual realm, cause
Hmm.
and effect. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, so question. So we have iron in our blood, correct? And
Hmm.
iron comes from Mars, correct? Or is it just that
Yes.
Mars rules iron?
No, you're right. Yeah. Both are true. Mhm.
So question, how do the elements reflect or begin to manifest on this realm? How is that so? Because all metals come from the planets, correct?
Yeah. Now,
Yes.
it's not so much that they come from the planets, but they're, each element has a frequency, right?
Okay.
And their frequency is going to match the metal. And not just that, the colors. So here, uh, Mars, when you look at Mars's light, Mars is either red or rust colored
Mm,
or kind of yellowy. Mars is always in between those colors. If you look up, you get a good look at Mars and zone out on it for a little bit,
mhm,
you'll see it's red orange, or yellow, like a rust color, Now, iron is black, right? Kind of bluish sometimes, depending how it's worked. It can be polished sometimes, whatever. But when it rusts, iron oxidizes. Iron oxide, rust, is red or orange or sometimes a little yellow.
Brown, yeah.
And brown, right. It's rusty.
Mm-hmm.
When you see rain, who's ever seen a really rusty piece of, like a just rusted out car, or rusty piece of iron out in the rain, and you see it get rained on and it bleeds red? That's the blood. That's the liquid iron coming out of rusty iron. It's blood. It's red like blood because it's iron in water, just like our blood. So another way you can show this is that copper is pink when you buy it. It's pink when it's polished. Copper is ruled by Venus, and Venus's colors are pink, green, and brown, or like earth tones. Flowers, vegetation, or earth. So pink, green, brown, feminine. Copper is pink when it's polished. When you buy it brand new, it's pink, shiny pink, like a brand new penny. When it tarnishes, or when it's worn, when it's like more, you wear it down a little bit, it's brown. And then when it oxidizes, it's green. So if I let this get dirty or wet and I just left it, it would be bright green. So copper rusts green. This is like Venus. So you'll see, or I wear a copper bracelet, right? And when I take it off, I have green on my wrist because it leaves a little oxidized residue. So you can see the planets behind the metals. Their influence is there. And with tin, Jupiter's the lightest planet. It's expansive. It's like they tell us. NASA tells us. NASA means deception, by the way. So there are a lot of liars back there. NASA tells us that Jupiter. NASA tells us that Jupiter is the light one. Like it's just a big cloud. It's the least dense planet. You could punch it and your hand would go like right through. It's just
Oh, so that's so okay. So can you run that correlation back by me? The NASA and the tin being deceptive.
Well, that's another thing. But Jupiter rules tin, like you said, and tin is the least dense of the noble metals. So there's 7 metals that go along with the planets.
Oh, so Jupiter rules tin, which is the least dense. So Saturn being the most dense planet, what metal does that rule?
Lead.
Lead, which is it automatically sinks.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Pulls you down, drags you down like Saturn.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So it all correlates through and throughout, from metals, from the days of the week, from the planets to the religious, everything. It always adds up.
That's how God works, man. This is the Tower of Babel, or this is the story where we were all on the same page. All the syncretism was understood around the world. After the Tower of Babel, metaphor or allegory, whatever, after that, we all get our own little piece of the puzzle and our own unique flavor. So Thailand's over there with their little piece of the puzzle, doing the martial arts and their unique architecture. And this is splitting up of whether it's the tribes of Atlantis, but we were all on the same page. We are still all on the same page. It's just the Tower of Babel. The languages are mixed up. The imagery is a little mixed up, but we're all on the same page.
Okay, so that was pretty much a perfect segue to another question I have for you. NASA, what the heck? Why did they make their main base be in Florida? What is the esoteric correlation behind that?
Yeah, so it's funny. The places that they chose, places that they chose to kind of set up are Melbourne and Titusville, and there's one more city.
And Melbourne is right on the coast as well.
So those are all close. Those are all close together. They're all right next to each other. Titusville is like Titans. Okay, Titus. Okay. It's also Roman Emperor Titus. But you've got Melbourne, and then there's one more. I forget, but
Cape Canaveral.
Yeah. Okay, Cape Canaveral. Yes, thank you, Cape Canaveral. And then there is another one. You're right, though. So that little area. There is another one. Right, I think that they're going to tell you that they chose Florida because it's flat and it's not that windy, right? Like if there's a hurricane, it's windy, but it's generally pretty predictable weather. They like predictable. They don't need perfect weather, but NASA and scientists, they like predictable, right? Okay. So Florida's weather is predictable. It's not freezing cold. There's not going to be winter storms to worry about. Okay. So as long as something's rainproof, it'll be good to go. But NASA chose Florida. Number one, the Bermuda Triangle touches here. So whatever it is, if they are traveling to distant, which I don't think they do. I don't think they go anywhere. I don't think NASA's ever gone anywhere personally. But
interesting. Do you watch Have you watched the Transformers series, bro?
No.
Okay, interesting. They had in one of the movies where some of the like Optimus Prime, they're supposed to be blasting off to a planet, and they faked it. You feel me? Like they had
really
like a piece of the cargo of the jet like came off and went into the ocean, and that's where they were the whole time. So just caught my attention. But you say you don't think they ever go anywhere?
No. Hell no. Bunch of fakers. Do you know what NASA means in Hebrew?
What does it mean, Dr. Longo?
Deception.
So and the thing is, you tell people that it still doesn't ring a bell. Would that be a case of a coincidence or?
Oh, I just saw you have it here. Yeah, in the top corner. Yeah, to deceive. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For sure. Like, do they do that to put it in our face, or does it actually stand for nautical astronaut or whatever space administration or something?
No,
something like that.
See, now you know how they say T minus.
Yes, T minus. Yeah,
we're landing. T minus 9, 8, 7. Yeah. Okay, well, what happens when you take away a T from NASA?
Take away a T from NASA, or add a T, or you add a T?
Well, yes, because they took it away. They minus the T. Satan.
Oh.
Satan. So the T minus, right? You have Satan. You throw a T into NASA, jumble it around a little, you get Satan. NASA means to deceive. Satan is the deceiver. You have the snake's tongue, that's a little snake's tongue. That's their logo.
That's crazy.
The deception, the snake, lying to people. But also, they make a bunch of money doing this. They make a shit ton of money, and they can waste it on a bunch of garbage. But why did they come to Florida? Florida's a magical place. Well, you also said, do they put it in our face? Yes. A big component of black magic is consent. A magician needs your consent to trick you, right? Would you like to see a magic trick? They'll always ask that. They'll always ask.
They need you to interact with them.
Yes. And then a hypnotist will test the people that he has before he chooses the people that he knows are completely malleable, that he can take over. Oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say.
No,
what were we talking about?
The magician, you said we were saying that they need their consent. They're just like NASA.
Yes.
In our face, yeah.
Yes, so a hypnotist needs your consent. It's suggestibility. If you're suggestible, they can take you over, and they'll always tell you what they're doing to you, thereby getting your consent. And when you give someone consent, even on an unconscious level, you submit to them, and your whole body submits. So how can we also demonstrate this? A vampire, according to stories and legends of vampires, a vampire must be invited into your home. Vampires are sneaky. They're great. They can turn into bats, whatever. I'm figuratively speaking, but vampires could break into your house if they wanted to. You have to invite them in. There are laws of protection that mankind is protected by. When we can give our consent, we give away our divine rights. We relinquish them when we give consent to black magicians. So part of this is they don't need always to ask your permission. Consent is not always permission, right? They don't need to ask you permission, although that's one way. What often the form consent takes is they ask you they tell you what they're going to do. Telling you what they're going to do to you strengthens their magic, and it gives them the consent they need to bypass God's protection over mankind. This is God gives us covenants to keep our faith with him in order that he will protect us from dark magic like this. And Jesus, especially, Jesus is the guy to have on your side. Even if you can't believe in a physical Jesus, Jesus is real in spirit and in everything.
In the force, like the force, basically.
Yeah, Jesus is the greatest comfort that man or woman can ever know. And that's because he is opposed to all demonic entities, all lesser suffering entities, anything that one of my favorite quotes about astrology is, if Jupiter were the only planet in the sky, mankind would live forever and would never know any bit of suffering. There would be no bloodshed, no decay. Man would live forever. There'd be nothing but peace. But clearly, that's not the lesson God wants us to learn down here. He doesn't want 7 billion Gandhis just bumping into each other and saying sorry, and the bugs never get stepped on. There is an element of chaos to the earth, but so God, blah blah blah, evil exists and it has its place within God's creation. It's not outside of God's creation. It's not threatening God's creation. It never can. But we invite it and we allow it to persist. And this is why NASA and people like them lie on such a large scale and get away with it, is they tell us what they're doing. NASA even tells you that they paint their images and CGI and everything's fake. They have people who do their artwork for them, who were making fake stuff that looked exactly like what they make once they get hired for NASA. You know what I mean?
Prior, so they're putting their work out there, and NASA reaches out to them to acquire.
Oh yeah. So originally, I don't know how they got into Robert Simmons, but Robert Simmons is one of NASA's. Yeah, they call him Mr. Blue Marble, because he's the guy who created the blue marble, which is the most famous picture of Earth there is.
Wow.
Was created. It's called the blue marble. He created the blue marble. So his nickname is Mr. Blue Marble because he made the picture of Earth.
Yeah.
That almost everyone has on like their wall, like on posters or whatever. But
okay, so question. So when people describe and they go into detail about how they believe that there truly is around Earth, they do it with such great detail and such description. Like they can go in depth. And are they truly just wrong about it all?
So yeah, I think they're wrong about it all. And I think that's hard to someone who's never taken their health into their own hands, who's never taken their nutrition into their own hands. what what does that mean? If you're an average Joe and you trust everyone else for your health, your medicine, your nutrition,
Mm,
your oh, the doctor's doing what's good for me, and I'll just I trust the experts. That's a very dangerous mindset to have. And if the last 4 years haven't taught anybody that giving authority away to the so-called experts is
mm,
always a bad idea, then people will never learn this lesson. Okay.
mm,
So you have, um, well, I brought up the medical industry. That's the best way to illustrate this.
mm,
I believe a million things that the medical industry would call harmful, dangerous, unhealthy, pseudo-scientific.
mm,
I'm healthy. I'm in great health. People come to me for health advice a lot of the
mm,
time.
mm,
And but the medical industry pays employees, and you can't even really say that there's one industry. There's a pharmaceutical industry, there's cancer industry, and
yeah.
there's all these things. All of them could be summed up and clumped together as the medical industry. Well,
Mm,
the medical industry, right, in my eyes, is 99% wrong about everything. So
mm,
what they're telling people to do is wrong and backwards. The way they approach disease is wrong and backwards. They like to treat rather than prevent. So if they're treating rather than preventing, right off the bat, I'm in complete disagreement with their model, with their system. So this happens with other industries, not just space, the space industry, which
mm.
which happens to have some of the highest profit margins, just like medicine.
Oh
Medicine's
wow.
high profit margins. So
Mm.
um, you know,
So they would never kill the construct. They would never admit the truth. The money's too good.
at this point, yeah, the money's too good. Now, when they pulled the wool over our eyes, remember, mankind has only been thinking we're on a ball for about 500 years.
Mm,
Okay, all of your ancestors, thousands of years back, knew what we lived on.
mm.
We lived on solid ground. You ever feel like you're spinning a bajillion? You ever feel like you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour?
Mm,
You ever look up at the there's some people who tell us that if you go up in a plane and you're going one way, you'll get where you're supposed to go faster.
mm,
They're simply not true. There's air currents up there, but they go north, they go south, they go west, they go east.
mm-hmm.
If anyone thinks that you can put a plane up in the air and that the spin of the earth is going to speed up or slow down that path, well, guess what? Go jump and tell me if you move, because that would have to be the same thing. Or tell me why you've never felt the spin. You've never felt a consistent blow of wind in one direction. You've never felt any of this. So it's either one or the other. We're either stuck in a pressurized system where you don't feel anything whatsoever, meaning the planes would not be able to drift one way and take advantage of a current that because of the spin. The clouds would have to be going one direction the whole time if this were the case also. They don't. The clouds move with the wind. Okay. So I'll say this is we've only been believing this lie for about 500 years that we're stuck on a little ball. Everyone that's ever lived has looked up at the sky and said, wow, that goes on forever. It's infinite. It's expansive. All I'm saying is the same is true for the earth. The earth is infinite and expansive. It never ends.
Mm,
It
mm.
half of your plane of view is the sky, the other half is the earth. So why is one more expansive than the other? As far as you look, 360 degrees of perfect horizon.
Wow.
That's what you'd get in a video game. You're not on
Mm.
a globe in a video game, but you still get 360 degrees of horizon because
Yeah.
that is how things work on a perfect plane. Now, when people hear flat earth, they've already been programmed to think of a sheet of paper floating in space.
Facts.
That's nonsense. And that's why everybody laughs and mocks flat earth. because if you still have space, but now you've just got a flat thing floating in space, there's no sense, there's no logic. Now, when you understand that the tree was the universal symbol of the universe, the universal symbol of what we live on was the tree. Okay, the tree, which is also Terra, T-E-R-E, Terra is Earth, tree also Earth. You could take Earth, you could rearrange it and spell tree. Blah blah blah. Tree is at the center of the Earth, the North Pole, whatever you want to call it, Yggdrasil. It's the tree. Now, this tree shows that the sky is infinite and the Earth is infinite.
Can you see my tree on my screen, bro?
Yes. Now, some of these are kind of, remember, all of these have kind of been written or drawn in the last 500 years since we've had this globe model. So they still show space underneath the tree. Now, I would differ by showing that all the land underneath the roots is infinite. Above, you have the sky, the branches reach out and grab the sky. Beneath, the roots go out and grab onto the earth. This is the model of the universe that I ascribe to.
Not so you wouldn't necessarily agree with this one too much.
No, because you still have space out behind there.
Oh,
you don't
okay.
have, Here, look this up. Look Polaris, if you could, please.
Yes.
Polaris star trail time lapse. Yeah,
Oh,
well, that's
wow.
it. Perfect. Now that's the North Pole. So the sky spins around the North Pole. The whole sky. That's the center point of the Earth and the sky. That's the axis upon which the heavens twist. That's directly above the North Star. Sorry, the North Pole. That's the North Star above the North Pole. It's called Polaris because our pole, like the stick, the axis that we're on, whether you're thinking flat or round, points straight up at that. And all the sky spins around Polaris.
So what exactly is this image? This is the time lapse. This is a 4-hour sequence of star trails captured from Nature Park in Portugal. So you're saying that the time lapse, that the sequence of the stars is relaying to us how the world actually is?
If you were closer to the North Pole, you would see a perfect ring above your head. If you were very close to the North Pole, Helsinki, for example, if you were nearby Helsinki, Finland, you would see a perfect ring above your head. And so this doesn't show that we're on a ball at all. This shows that the sky is spinning around us. There's nothing underneath. There's no sky underneath us. There's no sky underneath. When you see something rising over the horizon, what it's actually doing is coming very, very far away. Just like if you were in a dark room with a flashlight, where you are is lit, but at the end of the room is still pitch black. You don't need a hill in front of you in the end of the room to block the light. That's just how far light travels. So the sun,
wow.
So the
you're
sun
saying,
comes to us.
So when we feel the closest sunlight, that's actually when it's the farthest away?
No, it's not that. The sun is close. When it's over us, it's close. That's as close as it gets. And if you're up in an airplane and you see the sun, you'll see a hot spot under the sun where the light is brightest underneath the sun on the earth. But we don't have to get too deep in the
For sure.
Yeah.
That flashlight analogy was definitely interesting.
Sure.
Okay, so I can't let you leave. I want to bring up one specific topic, which is kind of like your expertise in a way, you know?
I'm in no rush.
Okay, wonderful. So, question.
Sure.
Was Atlantis, Tartaria, Lemuria, were these physical places or did they exist on higher dimensions?
Hmm. Right. So I don't think they existed on higher dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that. I think that Atlantis represents a time period, but it also represents multiple places. Now, I like to talk about Florida, but the truth is that much of this comes out of the North Pole, because the North Pole is where you have the most ice, and ice is what changed this Earth recently. The ice ages is what shifted and caused so much recent change.
Mm.
So Lumeria is a Pacific thing.
Yes.
Atlantis is Atlantic.
Mm.
So that's the geographic distinction between those two.
Mm.
Now, Tartaria is in Eurasia, right? But it kind of applies to Asiatic building styles and things like that that would have been transferred into America.
Mm.
Now, Tartaria, to me, also could represent a point in time. Okay, Atlantis means all the land ice.
Mm.
Atlantis, all the land is ice. That's when the Ice Age happened. Before Atlantis, you had paradise.
Mm.
Paradise. Before the ice. Paradise. So
Okay.
paradise means when the whole earth was tropical and there's no hell. There was nothing to be worried about. There was no threat of extinction every year. There was mango in abundance everywhere. Banana, coconut, enough sunshine and bring fresh water for everyone to enjoy. Now that's paradise. Atlantis is when things got a little tougher and countries and empires had to start competing
Mm.
for goods and space because the Ice Age restricted how much land was available to all of humanity, or
Mm.
the rising of the sea levels and such, but also the coldness, how cold it was in some places meant mankind couldn't live there. So this is also where you have the European race did not exist until Atlantis times. Then you have them coming down, in my opinion, coming down from the North Pole and competing with others for territory. And that's the Atlantis time. Now, before that, Lemuria, you have Pacific peoples. And this is uh, pretty much only melanated peoples is happening in this story. And light-skinned peoples have not even been created yet.
Mm.
Lumeria also means light, luminescence. So Blavatsky talks about Lumeria, and Steiner does too a little bit about how, like you were saying, they're very, very ethereal. How
Mm-hmm.
these people might not have even had bodies yet.
Mm.
And to me, I think I interpret that as these people weren't stuck in the body. They
Mm.
had we have light bodies,
Yes.
but we're kind of a little separated from them, and the connection is iffy. We have to strengthen it, and put a lot of effort into that in one
Mhm.
lifetime.
Yeah.
Whereas before, Lumeria, which by the way is, I like how you spell it here. Lumeria is a great distinction because Lemuria goes
Mm.
back to monkeys,
Mm.
because they were theorizing that lemurs were created as a subhuman, or is like an attempt to create a new race
Mm.
or a new helper for mankind, but the monkey was too wild, so it just went into the woods, right?
Okay.
So lemur, the word Lemuria comes from, they were trying to explain how lemurs are found in only certain spots, like down in the Pacific and up near Madagascar, and
Mm.
then there's relatives down in South America. There must have been something connecting them or bringing them place to place. That's where the word Lemuria comes from.
Mhm.
Lemur. but Lumeria, which is the same meaning, same place, indicating the same thing. Luminous means light. So Lumeria shows that these things, whoever was existing was more illuminated, and they had a luminescent body. And this is what Blavatsky, I think, was describing or focusing on when she said that they didn't have physical form. I think, to me, the big message is that these people had more knowledge, consciousness of their light bodies.
Yes.
And they inhabited the light body more, but they still were physical and partake in the physical world, but they weren't stuck here, so to speak.
Yes, like it says about the Olmecs, they were able to meditate and leave the body low key at will. You know, like whenever they wanted to, they had the training and the ability and the conscious and awareness of how to do such things. And it's crazy. It's one of the things that you notice about westernized teachings. We don't ever get taught about the soul or the light body at all. What do you think the reason that might be for us? Is it to keep us weighted down to this reality?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. There's the conspiracy part, which is, yes, we're living in a world that is more concerned with products and money and things like that,
And material
rather than the soul. But at the same time, we have to understand what the West is, and that the West is different from the East, and God intended it to be so. So Aleister Crowley sums this up as saying, in the East, their goal, and this is a big generalization, but don't worry. In the East, their goal is to strip everything away, to strip the identity, to strip the attachments, to strip the ego, and to leave nothing left. You meditate till you forget your name, or you chant till you forget your name, and you only know God. Only the only name you remember is God. Or these ascetic practices. You don't eat for 40 days until you see God. Right. So a lot of these things are ascetic and Eastern in origin, and they're better suited for the Eastern individual because they also don't eat onions over there, right? But they'll eat turmeric and ginger all day long, whereas here we eat onions and garlic all day long. But to us, ginger and turmeric is like, whoa, that's a medicine. That's strong stuff,
Yeah.
To them, it's the other way around. So there's a West and an Eastern energy, and the West is the same way that the East seeks to strip everything down to its bare minimum, to its common denominator, right? Or I don't know if I said that right, but it's bare minimum, strip everything away till there's only God left, or there's only the everythingness, there's only the nothingness left. The West's approach, historically, generally, has been to catalog everything and to explore every avenue. And when you take one art form and take it to its complete apex, or you take a science or a method of understanding nature and you take it to its most complex degree, you arrive at the face of God. The same way that the Buddhist, who has stripped away every piece of himself and everything he ever knew, I'm generalizing, right? But the same way that he has found a valid path to recognizing God, seeing the face of God, or understanding self-love, or whatever it is. That's another thing, is the East teaches different lessons. So enlightenment is not unique to the East. But what the East does have is they tend to teach the soul, and they teach love in the soul. So they teach, all the Indian yogis were all about love and acceptance and be presence, be here now, and soak up everything, right? But at the same time, you get a new name. So they strip your identity and you build back from nothing. In the West, like I said, they tend to take complex methods, and by taking them as far as they go and making as many names for all the different facets of what God can represent and all these different minuscule details, by exhausting all the names and methods of study, you eventually arrive at God. You arrive at so many synchronicities
Yeah.
and connections between all the fields of research where you're forced to acknowledge, you have no choice but to acknowledge there's a divine order and harmony in things. And science should be doing that. Science is not doing that today. So the West is not holding up their end of the bargain. I understand if people don't really see where I'm coming from with that idea, because it's not being acted out well today. But the other part is the West teaches something different than the East. The East teaches acceptance. You know, there's a lot of like intimacy issues in the West. You know, families don't always act like families. Like they can be a little cold.
Yeah.
Can be a little cold with each other sometimes. Or, you know, you turn 18 and it's like, bye, never see you again, you know.
And in
Good
the
luck with
East,
life.
yeah, in the East, that's the exact opposite. You can stay with the family forever. That's what they
Right.
low-key promote.
Right. So the East tends towards acceptance and community identity, whereas the West tends towards individuality. You know, you go to cities in the West, every building looks different, and every 10 years there's a new style. You go to the East, and it's the same style for the last 1,000 years. And I'm generalizing again, but it's just two methods of understanding nature. So I always get upset when I see girls. It's usually girls, but getting fixated on India or Nepal or Tibet. Like these places are somehow more spiritual than where they were born. God puts you exactly where He wants you. He puts you exactly in the skin color He wants you born in the family, the nation, the place, the climate. And that's not to say you can't move or change some of that stuff, but you're given the cards you're given to
For a reason.
understand. Yeah. So
interesting. Okay, so we spoke about the differentiation on the lessons and the teachings of the East and the West. So curious. So we also see a differentiation in the building structures in regards of the pyramids. So from your perspective, do you think that the first pyramid structures were built in the East and the knowledge was brought to the West, or were the first ever pyramids actually built in the West and the knowledge was taken to the East?
Right. That's a really good question. Now, when I say West, from now on, we'll be talking about the Americas.
Yes.
Just the Americas, because
North and South.
Philosophically, Egypt is the West. You know what I mean?
Philosophically, okay.
Yeah, Greece is the West, and Egypt is the West. But now we're going to talk geographically about the pyramids. The Americas is the West, and that's the New World, right? The quote unquote New World.
Let's get into it.
I'll give you some reasons why all the other pyramids of the world, even though they're glorious, even though they're big, like the pyramids of Giza, which are not actually the biggest, they might be the tallest standing, but they're not the biggest. The Great Pyramids of Giza are crude, meaning they're blocks. And as wonderful as that masonry is, this is just a theory, right? I'm not saying I could do it better or anything, but the pyramids are constructed rather crudely, even though they're created with such precision and geometry. Aesthetically, we'd have to say that they've been destroyed, or they were either more beautiful before, or they've been messed with since then to look less beautiful. But if that's how they look, if they're just flat and with the crude blocks like that, I would have to say this one might be made out of memory, or out of emulation of another. And in the West, we find our pyramids finely chiseled, finely designed. They're facaded with, they have the steps, they have the staircases.
To this
there's
day.
There's also another thing. The Old Testament tells priests to not step on stairs. So Israelite priests would not step on stairs. So if you're an actual ancient Hebrew priest, they don't step on stairs. And the reason for this is your nakedness.
Yeah. Ooh, and you must not go to my altar on steps, lest your nakedness be exposed on it. Ooh.
So that's one way that you could show that the pyramids are, I don't know if that shows that they're older or newer, but pyramids without steps could be Israelite in origin, whereas pyramids with steps could be, non-Abrahamic peoples, more pagan or non-Abrahamic, so not Christian, not the precursors to those religions either, the Abrahamic faiths, the Old Testament.
Okay, so you said that the people who were non-Abrahamic, meaning the people of the Americas, correct?
Yes.
That you said that their culture may not be so as much related to the Israelites as maybe the tribes of the
or their pyramids are older than those teachings.
Okay.
Or they were not those teachings didn't apply to them, meaning their pyramids have steps. Step pyramids is not in the style of a Hebrew priest. Whereas perhaps pyramids of Egypt, if they didn't have steps originally, if they were just flat, perfect pyramids, that's more in the style of Israel, of the ancient Israelites of the Old Testament, with no steps leading up to the altar. So the Mormons talk about this. I learned that from Wayne May, about the steps, no steps on certain buildings, which was really opened my mind to some things. But also, here's one more way that we can show the pyramids of the West are potentially older or served as the influence that the new ones in Egypt and so on were built off of. And remember, this is just a theory. I'm not telling you this is it. But when we look at the pyramids of the West, the Americas, the people buried in them were not mummified. They were buried as bare skeleton. They were buried bare, and when their sarcophagi were opened, they were skeletons, not covered. They might have had ointments and things placed on their skin, but they were not wrapped. They were not embalmed like the pyramids of Eurasia and the Middle East and North Africa, where we regularly find, not necessarily in the pyramids, but we find with the pyramids, people who are mummified, embalmed. Now, what is this? Also, in the pyramids of the West, you find inside the pyramids stones worked of soft stones like jade, and very little metals, if not no metals. Meaning, man was not proficient in metal work, or he was not used to shaping hard stones. So the people buried in those pyramids, if that's what they were buried for, were not using hard stones. Whereas in Egypt, they're using hard stones. They have tons of metals, hard metals. They're definitely were using hardened metals. And they used hard stones and precious stones, and they had advanced ways of shaping them. Whereas in the Americas, they almost only use jade with the people. Like in Palenque. In Palenque, the guy that's buried there is wearing jade ornaments, all jade. There's harder stones nearby, but they're harder to work with. So like they're denser, like more solid, but they're harder to work with and shape. So this could show a level of primitiveness. Not saying that they're primitive, but it was before metals and hard stones became easy for everyone to use.
So do you think that the knowledge got perfected in the Western area?
That's one way to look at it. I'm kind of quoting the research of E. Calloway, who was Florida's 1936 Republican candidate for governor. When I'm saying this, he used the materials in the pyramids of the Americas to show that they might have been earlier. Because yes, like you're saying,
because question I have, we say that they might be earlier in the Americas, but the fact that in the Giza pyramids aligned with the stars, I mean, that just takes the cake. You feel me? Even though we have step pyramids over here, I feel like
ours align with the stars too.
Oh, really?
They all do. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I've never heard anyone bring this up. So the pyramids of the Americas also align with certain stars, similar to the pyramids of Giza.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I gotta see this.
Yeah, let me look this up. So yeah, the pyramid of the sun and the moon also align. Teotihuacan pyramids align with Orion, just like the Egyptian pyramids do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Why does no one ever bring that up? Like, you know how what were you saying, bro?
Well, number one, most people don't believe in astrology. They don't like it. They don't like to talk about constellations and their influence, because that's a lot of influence. What's the lesson to be learned there? If the greatest landmark man has ever created is created for the stars, in harmony with the stars, isn't that going to tell everyone today that we're kind of doing things wrong, that we need to learn from the stars? They don't really want that. So they'll talk about how perfect they are, but they won't talk about how they're all aligned the same way.
This is amazing, bro. This is so it's like they were kind of on a mission to purposely do this, to leave us a message. They align from country to country. These span thousands of miles apart as well. They're relaying the same message though. What do you think the ultimate message that we should receive from this?
It's the solstice and the equinoxes. There's a lesson here that can never be forgotten. So we can all forget it, but when you look up in the sky and then you see these buildings, because those pyramids are not going anywhere. You know, people have tried to destroy them hundreds of times. They failed. They're still there. People have tried to pickaxe them, blow them up. They get tired and give up because they're so big. You can be blowing stones for a year and not even make a dent.
Oh, wow.
You know, in terms of what it looks like from a mile away. So people who see these landmarks, these megalithic structures, and then match them to stars, will be able to learn and teach themselves about not just the calendar, but harmony. So that, you know, people talk about the measurements in the pyramids, right? Oh, it tells you the distance from around the equator. And by the way, that stuff's true, whether you're around or not. It's still the same distance around the equator. North is still north. Equator is still the equator. But the message here is Orion are the three stars. The three stars of Orion's belt point to the place on this winter solstice that the sun will rise. They point to Sirius. And Sirius shows when you connect these, when you draw a line through it, it shows the spot on the winter solstice where the sun will rise.
Interesting. Okay. 1 second.
Yeah,
One
do
second.
Orion winter solstice alignment or something like that. We'll see.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to ask you about the fact that Sirius being the dog star, and then I think like in one of their logo. Okay, yes, right here. 1 second. Sirius is the dog star, and in their logo for the radio, they have a freaking dog with a star in his eyes.
Yes.
So are they also? It's back to what you said earlier about putting it in our face.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of so Cyrus is one of the most famous dog names in cartoons and TV shows. You'll hear Cyrus or Sirius is Osiris, right? Osiris, Osirius.
Ooh.
Right. So Sirius, Osiris. You've also got, this is the dog star, like you said. So it goes back to Pluto. Pluto is the dog, the hound, the hellhound.
Pluto. Yeah. Oh, Pluto.
Hellhound. So that's the dog, Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Pluto's also Anubis, right? So Anubis is the dog of the underworld too. Black dog of the underworld. Well, Anubis is where we get Snoopy. So Pluto, Goofy, Scooby, Snoopy. These are all the same archetype.
Wait, Goofy, Snoopy, and Pluto, they're all the same.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Snoopy. Pluto. Goofy. And then
because they all phonetically have that ooh.
Yes. And this is where, like you said, lewd earlier. This is the underworld. Pluto rules Scorpio, so this is like Halloween stuff. Halloween is the festival of Scorpio. It rules sex, death, underworld, reincarnation. That's Scorpio. So lewd comes from Pluto, but also plunder, plunger, loot, like to loot a dead body, to take money out of the ground. Yeah, Scorpio rules the butt too. So booty. This is why booty's treasure from the ground. Plute. So it's lewd. It rules lewd things, but also what's hidden and obscure, like Hades. Same. Hades is the same word. It's where we get the word hidden, or I hate you. Go to the underworld. I hate you. Hades. So yeah, Plutonian means dark, obsessed with death or dark things. Lewd. Plunger, used on the bathroom. A plumber.
I heard you once before mention that. I think you said all words derive from the planets and such.
Yeah.
How is that true? Like, are they like the planets are like the archetypes, and you can just pull all words? Like, how exactly does that work?
Well, each sound has a letter, and each letter corresponds to a planet. So we could say, the one that I like to start off with is mercenary. You know what a mercenary is, right? Yes,
those are the ones that kill. But it initially took my mind to a missionary, the ones that go and preach the gospel.
Well, a mercenary is someone who kills for money. So Ares is the god of war that rules killing, right? And then, what was I just saying?
You said
mercenary means merchant. Mercury rules merchandise or commerce. Merce, that's Mercury. So Mercury rules the market. Mercado, commercial. Wonderful. So that is Mercury. Mars. So Mars fighting, Mercury commerce. You're fighting for money. You're fighting for occupation.
Mm.
Mercenary. Also, let me pull up some more. I'll give you some.
So for mercenary, what I'm hearing is money, and then airy for war, or you know what I'm saying. So war and money. That's what I'm.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting
Yes.
from.
Yeah. Mercenary. Yeah. Merchant of war.
Merchant of war. Merchant of
Mercenaries.
war.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And also medical. Where does medical? Virgo rules medicine and
Mm-hmm.
nutrition and health. Well, medical comes from hermetic. So the hermit is Hermes, and that is where you get medical because it's the midway sign. So Mercury rules Virgo. So you get Hermes, that's Mercury to Hermes, the medical. And thought. Mercury is the god of speech and thinking. So thought comes from Thoth. That's Thoth,
Okay.
the god of
Exactly.
thinking. So I had a thought, Mercury came to my head and gave me an idea. That's a thought, right? Thought. Um, if something is Aquarius, awkward, it's the most awkward sign of the zodiac. They're unique. They're not like anyone else, so they're awkward, or they're weird. Weird. Aquarius, or they're queer.
Oh.
The Aquarius is the queerest sign. That's
Are
why.
they also inquisitive?
Yes, they inquire for sure. Inquiry. Yes, good one. And the Q is right there in Aquarius, but it's also LGBTQ. All this nonsense goes along with the age of Aquarius. So it didn't happen the last 2,000 years, but it's happening these 2,000 years. It's the age of Aquarius. So there's a lot of queerness, and then also awareness. Aquarius not only rules what's strange, but it rules the metaphysical and consciousness. So awareness, Aquarius, awareness, right? Same word.
So question. So
sure.
we're literally decoding from the days of the week to the zodiac signs with the English language though. Is this possible using any other language?
Sure. Yeah. You speak Spanish. Here, I might just have to freshen up. I speak a good amount of Spanish. That's usually the one I use. But
well, we have it on our topic list. Give us a breakdown on hell, please, and infierno.
Okay, sure. So hell in Spanish is infierno. Winter is invierno. Right. So also in Italian, French, all the Latin languages, this is the same. Invierno, infierno. So hell is cold. Oh man, it's cold as hell in here, right? Or it's freezing. In Dante's Inferno, hell is cold. It's freezing. And Santa, who's Satan rules hell. Santa rules the winter. So
Capricorn when it's cold.
Exactly. The winter solstice is in Capricorn, which is Santa's time, but it's also Satan's time. Saturn exalts in Capricorn. Rules Capricorn.
You have to be able to. Okay, so Saturn rules. Saturn rules Capricorn, but is exalted in Libra,
which is the fall of man. When the sun loses its influence. So Libra is Lucifer. I said Lucifer is Venus, but Libra is the sign that rules temptation because you have the two tempting planets in the same sign. Venus rules the good temptation, like pleasure and it's comforting and it's so nice and
because when a planet is ruled by a certain sign, that's when that's when it's magnified the most, or
both. Ruling has a big influence, but exalting also has an influence. So like people will say Cancer is ruled by the moon,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people forget that Jupiter exalts. So
Okay.
yeah, so Jupiter exalts in Cancer. That's why it's June and July for
Ooh.
Jupiter.
Okay.
And Juno is the
Mm-hmm.
wife of Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
So Juno is the wife of Jupiter. June and July is Cancer. Jupiter exalts in Cancer. So yes, it's the moon. The moon rules multiplication, meaning 1 turns into 2, turns into 4. That's the moon, like the mother. The
Mm-hmm.
mom can take, but Jupiter rules expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is it multiplication, but it's expansion. So both those together in Cancer is where you get Cancer's flavor. It's the grower. They have the green thumb, nature. They're the chef. They rule food, abundance.
Oh, and cancer, the disease is when cells begin to expand. They begin to grow and replicate at a large amount, uncontrollably,
Perfect.
basically.
Wonder, yeah, you took the words
Oh,
out of
because
my.
that's the Jupiter energy. Oh shit.
Yeah,
Oh, so
there you
Jupiter,
go.
its influence on Cancer causes it to
Yes,
replicate. Oh, so Jupiter has to
perfectly
chill
said.
out. So Jupiter has to chill out, so you don't get cancer, basically.
Exactly. The only bad with Jupiter is too much good,
Too much. Oh, too much of anything is a bad thing.
and that's what Cancer represents, and that's why Cancer got its name. Cancer rules the breasts, right?
It's the most common form of cancer
In women,
in women.
which is Cancer rules women.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer rules the
Ooh,
breasts, and
and the
women.
moon, the feminine energy, magnetism. Oh, mom. Oh shit.
So yes, all the words tie into the astrology. They always do. Every day of every calendar, Mars. Aries is ruled by Mars. That's why we have March. April.
Mm.
April is abra, meaning to open. Abrir in Spanish. Abrir means to open. Abrir goes back to April, or either way, April means to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
abracadabra, to begin. Open in Spanish is abrir. So that's April, to open, because it's the first sign of the zodiac. So you're saying March because it's ruled by Mars, April because it's the first sign of the zodiac. Then you get into what's after March, April. May is Maya. May is Maya. That's also the madre, the material, the matador, the bull,
Mm-hmm.
the matador. That's
Mm-hmm.
Taurus, the matador, the matador. That's the bullfighter, matador. That's the mother. Material, matter, matador, the bull. If it's also rules femininity, Mother's Day is in May.
Yes.
Why? Why? Because the feminine reproductive system is shaped like a bull, like a bull's head with its horns. The uterus,
You
is
Taurus. Oh.
uterus. Yes, it's uterus, but it's also the utter, like the cow.
Ooh, other cat. Okay.
The uterus. Or then you have your fallopian tubes. That's your buffalopian tubes.
Ooh.
Buffalo.
Okay.
Fallopian tubes are the parts that go to the eggs. And then you have your ovaries. That's your bovine. Bova means cow. Ova means egg.
Hmm.
So bova, ova is in the middle of cow. Bovine means cow. So
Okay, so where that just took my mind to. So you said fallopian tube or phallus or low. What is the does that have any implication? Phallus, fallopian.
yes, yes. So Venus rules May,
Hmm.
which is Taurus. So that's May, which is Maya, which is
Hmm.
another way of saying Venus.
Mhm.
Maya is Maria. It's Mary, Maria, Maya, May, same person. Macy, Maisie, whatever. Same feminine god.
Mhm.
Venus is the feminine, and the ovaries are the feminine, and the fallopian tubes are the feminine. But
Mm-hmm.
you're exactly right, because Venus also rules the most sensitive part of the male body too. So that's why, you asked, so I'll tell you, Venus is where we get penis.
Okay.
So buffalo, you know, fallow is a fellow. You're exactly right. It's a phallus, and you in the military you have your phalanx, which is a tactic or a shape that they make that looks like a phallus, and they go forward into battle.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and the bull is the masculine cow. So it's not just a feminine thing. It rules fertility. So these are the two parts of the body that rule fertility.
Mm-hmm.
And cows are very fertile. They make lots of milk, and that's why you have Mother's Day in May with the uterus and the udder, and this whole thing looks like the head of a cow too. By the way, when you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Question. Okay, so we spoke about Saturn a bit. So a lot of people say that there's chances that the story, and well, even you have said that basically the Old Testament is Saturn and the New
mhm,
Testament is Jupiter.
right.
So basically, I guess what I'm asking is, how does that correlate with its astrological implications? It being exalted in Libra and ruling in Capricorn. Where does that show forth in the Bible?
So the fall of man is what gets kind of the short end of the stick, or gets the blame. The
Mm-hmm.
fall of man, and Lucifer is the bad guy. He gets
Mm-hmm.
he gets all the blame for no real reason. He's Many people will tell you, oh no, Lucifer is good. Lucifer didn't do anything wrong, and he's it's just a misunderstanding. And I tend to kind of agree with that, because Satan is one thing. That's Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Satan has very little redeeming qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Lucifer, who is also a tempter, because Satan rules temptation because he wants to punish you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Lucifer, or Venus, rules temptation because God made that which is good tempting, and he
Mm-hmm.
made
Mm-hmm.
reproductivity beautiful and sensual. So the feminine nature of temptation is ruled by Venus, meaning, everyone wants to feel good all the time. So that's kind of the Venus influence, is chasing pleasure, whereas Saturn is more giving in to lies and giving in to deception, and giving up on your morals.
Hey, 1 second. 1 second, bro. Something wrong with your mic.
Hey, I
We're
switched
good now.
I switched my mic. That happens sometimes. It was
Yeah,
probably
yeah. I've peeped it a couple times. It's all good though.
did it loop?
Yeah. Like it's done in like it's done in a couple of them. I think you did it in one with Aldar. That shit did it for like a little minute.
Yeah, that's the CIA. Who knows?
That
Just
means
kidding.
we're having a good convo. They want to tap in.
Right. But if you can hear me okay, then we're good.
Yeah, we're good. My brother,
Okay.
he said, didn't Lucifer get referred to as a harlot or nah? You
Now,
have any?
so Christianity, like I said, likes to blame Lucifer for their issues.
Mm.
Now, what they don't understand is that this is an astrological thing.
Mm.
Yes, Libra. So Lucifer means light bringer, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Lucifer means luz means light.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Saint
Luce,
Lucia means the country of light. Yes. Luke. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, or to look, you have to have light to look.
Ooh, yes.
Look.
Yes.
Um, and God said He didn't like lukewarm water, right?
Mm.
If you're lukewarm, I'll surely spit you out. I think He said something like that.
Facts.
But so Lucifer is the light bringer who rules visual light and the spectrum of light.
Mm-hmm.
Libra rules aesthetics.
Mm.
So what God's trying to say here is that looks and pleasurable senses can be deceiving, and they can be the most deceiving.
Mm.
it's not that they're evil, but that they're deceptive. They're the most, Lucifer was the snake. Why? Because, well, Aleister Crowley said there's love and there is love. There's the serpent and there is the dove. So Libra rules the dove and the serpent, right? Because it rules harmony and peace like the dove, but it also rules this kind of deceptive element. So he explained that astrologically, where Lucifer is Libra. Like I said, Lucifer is the light bringer. What does the word Libra mean? Oh, and by the way, Luz means the light. Why? Because Luz is soul backwards.
Oh, okay.
Soul, light, sunlight. Luz is light, perhaps the false light. The false light of fall time. Of fall. So this is the false teaching. This is the false angel. It's the fallen angel. The fallen angels are not evil. You can interpret it that way, and you can learn, and there's good lessons. I'm not saying evil's good. Evil's never good. But the fallen angels don't represent evil. They represent the point of the zodiac, which displays temptation. Meaning Libra rules aesthetic, like models, beauty, like cosmetics, and Venus rules these things too. But Venus rules Taurus, but in Taurus we get more of the nature influence of more of the wilderness and the plants. And in Libra, you don't get as much of the nature, but from Venus you get the vanity. The vanity. Vanity comes from Venus. If you're vain, right? If you're vain, that means you have too much Venus going on in your head. You're like, ooh, look at me, look how pretty I am. And that's too much Venus in your head. So vanity goes back to Venus. And Libra, which rules like light, colors, good sense, smells, makeup, artificial beautifying things. I'll get into the Antichrist. That's a good one too. But Libra also means light bringer, because what is the fleur de lis? Lis means light. Lis means light. The fleur de lis is the flower of light. So lis means light. Lis means light. And Libra, bra means to bring. You brought something over. I'm the bringer of this. I'm the bringer of that. Libra is the one holding the scales. So it's a midway point in the zodiac. Virgo's the midway. Virgo's the verge of the zodiac. Virgo's the verge of the second half. Right after Virgo, we're in the second half of the year. And the sun loses its dominion. The sun is no longer the strongest guy in the sky. And that's Jesus losing some of his power. That's God kind of giving up some of his power to the other planets like Saturn and Venus, who rule Libra. So this is the fall of man. This is the false light. This is the false teaching, the fallen angels, Libra. Libras aren't evil. There's no evil here, but we got to understand that Libra rules vanity and deceptive appearances and beauty, and evil things can be beautiful. So that's the teaching behind Lucifer. Also, Venus rules music. Venus rules music. Lucifer was the angel of music. Music's not evil, but Libra is the sign that's most likely to make music about anything other than God. So that's one of those. That's another one of the connections. Would you like me to touch on this topic here?
Yes, definitely, bro.
So, does the Antichrist in the Bible have any planetary correlation?
And I'll give you my guess just before you say anything. So, from my studying you, Santos, Bill Donahue, and multiple others, I would say that the Christ is represented in the skies by Jupiter. So I would have to say that the Antichrist would be the opposer, would have to be Saturn.
That's certainly There's nothing wrong with saying it that way, for sure. I would only add to that that anti means before. It actually means before. A lot of people think it means opposite or against, and that's one.
But it means prior.
To antedate something means that it was before, right? To antedate.
Oh, snap.
Something that preceded something else. So to antedate means you came before what's happening now. So the Antichrist, this is going to get a little backwards here, but
let's get into it.
The Antichrist, Christ, like you said, is Jupiter. But why is Jupiter Christ, and why not? Why aren't we just calling him Jupiter? Because it's Jupiter in the sign of Pisces. Jupiter rules Pisces, and Pisces are the sign that cries the most. So that's Christ.
Oh, right? Okay.
Because Jesus is a little bit of a crybaby.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that with any disrespect. No disrespect. But he's emotional. He's sensible. He's in his emotions, and he is also very empathetic. Jesus was an empath. That was his gift. He wasn't the most knowledgeable. He wasn't the best healer there ever was. He was an empath. He could weigh a man's worth of their soul. You know, he could feel what people were feeling, the truth of it. Now that is a Pisces. Not only is Jesus astrotheologically represent Pisces, being born 2,000 years ago at the age of Pisces.
Pisces, yeah.
But his qualities that we're told he walked around with day to day were Piscean. He liked fish, you know, he's the fish guy, always giving fish, talking about fish. I'm the fisher of man. But Christ coming from cry, Jesus wept. How often do you hear people say that? Jesus wept, and his tear hit the ground, and I think an earthquake came, or that was his blood, or something like that. But his tears had so much power behind them. This clearly shows Pisces. Pisces is the crybaby of the zodiac. There's nothing wrong with that. It's because they feel so much. They're the empath. It's hard for them to live normal lives because of how involved they get in other people's emotions and feelings. So Jesus was a Pisces. He's a Christ, right? His message was turn the cheek, don't fight back. That's a very Pisces thing. Pisces tend to be pushovers, where they're very passive. These are Pisces words. They might be pussies. They might be a pacifist.
Yes.
These are all Pisces words. Okay. So Antichrist means before the Christ. Now we're in the age of the Antichrist. Anti or anti means before. Christ is Pisces. What is the sign of the zodiac that comes before Pisces?
Capricorn.
Well, there's one after
Aquarius, my bad.
Aquarius, we are in the age of the Antichrist. Aquarius is the Antichrist. And you said that that Jupiter is potentially the planet behind the Antichrist. And you're right, because Jupiter rules Pisces, but Saturn rules Aquarius. Now, there's also Uranus. Uranus is a part ruler. That's where we're getting all the technology.
Wait, Saturn rules Aquarius?
Yes.
Saturn rules Aquarius and is exalted in Libra. So what is its association with Capricorn then?
It also rules Capricorn. But so Capricorn is all Saturn, right? Aquarius is Saturn and Uranus. So Uranus rules Aquarius, and Saturn partially rules, because Saturn is a visible planet, right? So every sign of the zodiac has a visible planet that rules it. But there's planets that aren't visible, like Uranus to the naked eye, that aren't visible to the naked eye, like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
Those still rule signs, but since they're not visible, they can only partially rule signs. So Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, right? But the other ruler is Uranus, who also goes by the name Janus. So Uranus is also Janus or Ianus, Iana, Janus,
Ooh.
Ianus, Uranus. These are the
Mm.
same god. And that's the only planet where we take the Greek name instead of the Roman. Because Uranus is a Greek god, Oranos, but his Roman counterpart
Wow.
is Janus. For some reason, that's the one planet that the elites didn't rename. Did rename for. They did not rename it for the Romans. They just kept the Greek name. So Janus, which rules Aquarius, is where we get January.
Mm-hmm.
So Aquarius starts in January, named after Janus. Janus is the god of portals or doorways.
The beginning.
Yeah.
So. Dang. Okay. So yeah, we just went on a phonetical roller coaster. That is insane. So basically, and it all started with asking. Basically, all words do derive from the planets. So when they were creating the English language, the Anglish, they began with the planets and started there and worked so on down. Is basically what you're saying.
I don't even think they had to do anything. That's just how God works. That's how the mouth works. That's how humans work. We interpret even what we don't understand sometimes.
But the fact that it just works and fits so perfectly is just crazy. And I heard you say once before that you said that English is like, I don't want to say the oldest language. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, so many people, I know there's some Hebrew Israelites that would call you just insane. They would immediately say it's Aramaic, Hebrew. That's supposed to be the most divine language. How do you make the case for English being the oldest and purest language?
Right. So language comes from lingua or linga, which means tongue, right? To lick, or linguistic, or so the oldest tongue, the oldest sound that man's ever made with his tongue. You cannot even tell me that, and it's not Hebrew. It's some noise or some grunt. Now, I also don't think that man started out like a caveman. But if we're saying first like that, then you're going to have to say, well, it wasn't any of our finely constructed languages, but the first language with a phonetic alphabet, meaning one sound equals one letter. Yes, English is your modern equivalent of Phoenician. So let's talk about people's objections. People's objections to that would be Sanskrit, okay, or Hebrew, or Aramaic, Paleo-Hebrew, or Aramaic, or maybe Sanskrit. Sanskrit came from the north, from an earlier writing system that was being spread around, right? Therefore, Sanskrit cannot be the oldest. It would have had to come from something that came probably from the Middle East, roughly around there, or Central Eurasia. Well, Hebrew, all written Hebrew, all phonetically written Hebrew, goes back to Phoenician. It goes back to Phoenician. And where does Phoenician come from? Phoenician, in my opinion, goes back to Finland. Finnish today is the most phonetic language in the world, meaning one sound equals one letter always, no matter what. And all their rules in their language are followed almost to a T, perfectly. So I'm not saying it's a perfect language, but they are strict and they follow all the rules, and the rules are very simple, believe it or not. So you'll never get confused. Whereas English is a purely, how would you say it? It's phonetic. It's people, you get used to how it sounds and you just roll with it. The spellings changed. Our rules are rarely, if ever, followed. So what I'm getting at is Phoenician does not exist today.
Yeah, because I remember in school we would have language arts, and then we would have a separate part for phonics. We would take out our phonics books. You feel me?
Mhm.
And we
Yep.
would learn, like, I guess, like that's where we learn our homonyms and what is the other one? Homonyms and it's not homophobes. It's something along the similar to that. But that's
I
what
don't
we
know.
would learn phonics. But we were never taught about Phoenicians and such.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because the Phoenicians, even the mainstream historians don't like to talk about the Phoenicians because they don't understand where they came from. They don't understand how they got so much influence. They don't understand how they were around for so long. You know, Rome rose and fell, and the Phoenicians were there. Sorry, Greece rose and fell, and the Phoenicians were there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, why don't we talk about them as much as the Greeks? And they held a ton of territory, and there's so much to be said there. They aren't even really an empire like we think. But the Phoenicians spread language on boats. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's what the English did with their language, and English was not its own thing until about 1600, roughly 1600 is when English really got ironed out. And that was done at the behest of Queen Elizabeth, who said the English aristocracy and the elites in England in the 1500s and earlier were speaking French because English had not been ironed out into a beautiful language. So when we're talking about the creation of modern English, yes, you could point to 1600 and say, you know, modern English has its genesis there. But what English accomplishes, what it was created to do, that mission is the same mission as what Phoenician was created for.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what we're looking at right here. So many of these symbols can still be identified today
Wow.
as English letters because they haven't changed that much at all.
Just the meaning of some of them. That's all.
Exactly. You just swap them, and what you're showing is, you know, some countries would. It's no different than you know, Spain using a V instead of a B in some words, or you know, just changes like that are more dialects where it's the same symbols. You know, how many languages use Latin letters, but use them differently or sound, you know, pronounce them a little different. This is the same thing. English is just the modern Phoenician. In fact, English was largely created by a handful of people at the order of Queen Elizabeth. And what they were doing was they weren't creating a new language out of nowhere. They were taking all the little pieces that were already getting spoken in the British Isles. And what they did was they say, okay, we're going to take the Latin suffixes because those are good. They work, they make sense. We're going to keep the Germanic structure because English is a Germanic language with a lot of Latin vocabulary. That's what makes it unique. But then also they said, we're going to take the phonetic element straight from the source. So according to the Bach saga, which is a Finnish folk etymology or Finnish folk. Well, I hope you don't. There's some weird stuff in that book. I'm
For
sure.
sure. I haven't dived all the way in yet, but you know, hearing you mention it so much, I had to go ahead and copy it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's some weird sex stuff in there. I'll just come out and say there's some. That's most people's issue with the Bach saga. If you can get over that, and you know, it's not telling you to do these things. It's not telling you to do anything in your life. It's just saying how things were in the past.
I mean, there isn't anything that's probably in there that isn't in the Bible. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's a little something that's not in the Bible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but different. You know, it's if you can get over the weirdness in the Bach saga, it is the greatest it's the greatest source of understanding for the English language.
Mm.
And it's not even created by an English or American speaker. They say that there's one root language, which is closest to the type of Swedish, Finnish Swedish. Then there's 3 ancient original languages. And this is phonetic language. We're not saying that, oh, you guys didn't have English, so we came first. No, it's English, Finnish, and then root. And when you look up Indo-European languages, these are all phonetic languages using roughly the same alphabets, runic or Punic alphabet. And these all follow the same rules for the most part. And these are all phonetic, and all phonetic languages come from them. The root language being the oldest, Finnish being the next, and then English being the more recent kind of recalibration. English was recalibrated. It's Phoenician that's been recalibrated a couple times so that it still functions today.
So where exactly would the Hebrew come from?
Hebrew comes from Phoenician.
Okay, so would you say there is a source of power in the Hebrew language, like there is a divinity connected to it?
There is, but this is the same way that people use runes. Have you ever seen people use runes for magic? And I'm not saying magic in a bad way, but runes for blessings or for charms or spells. Runes are these Phoenician symbols up near the North Pole in, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, England, Ireland. You get runes. When you go to North Africa, you get Punic. So runic in northern Germany, then Punic in North Africa. Punic is Phoenician. Punic. This is where puns come from too. Having jokes with words. Oh, that word sounds like that word. That's a pun. Pun goes back to the Phoenicians too.
Okay, then.
Phonic, because Punic is what the Phoenicians' language was called. Punic, or their writing system in North Africa, Carthage. Punic. So a pun comes from Punic, and but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you just mentioned North Africa. I think we'll save that convo for next time. I did not know we were going to get all the way here and not necessarily mention any native, any Moorish history, anything. And it's crazy because I know you could probably double the length in that knowledge. It's just as, if not even more extensive. You feel me? Your knowledge on history. You feel me? This was just astrology. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up right here. You gave me 2.5 hours out to Narco Longo. I definitely appreciate it, bro. Definitely appreciate it. If you don't mind, just tell my viewers where they can reach you at.
Old World Florida on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram at Old World Florida with underscores, or Dr. Narco Longo, whatever. I've got a Twitter and some other stuff too, but my assistant runs that, not me. So I'm on Instagram if you want to reach me directly, and that's really it.
Definitely. I want to say thank you again, Dr. Narco Longo. I hope to do this again. We need a part 2 on the Moors, the native history, the slave trade, the everything, the terrestrial side, I guess, of life. We got into the extraterrestrial, the more cosmic side. We're going to bring it down to earth a little bit next time and show how life is also correlated with the stars as well.
Sure.
Definitely.
And hey, thanks for hosting me, man. Glad to be here. Some great topics, good questions.
Exactly. Well, we're going to wrap it up right there. GMI TV Cosmic Convos episode 4. I appreciate everyone that tuned in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
Shall ya?
Shall ya.